Welcome to the Sales Podcast, Session 45. Out with the old, in with the new. Welcome to the 45th edition of the Sales Podcast. I'm Wes Schaefer, the Sales Whisperer, your host. Today we have my sales mentor, my sales trainer and coach, Steve Clark of New School Selling. Met him way back in 2006. We've been friends ever since. If you would like to see a tidbit of what I've learned over the years, thanks in no small part to Steve, head on over to 30daysalesgrowth.com. Enter the promo code podcast, all lowercase letters, to save 30% on my 30-day sales growth program. Today's funny is sales related, and it's the salesman's prayer. And it goes something like this. All I ask, Lord, is for the chance to prove that money cannot make me happy. And in line with the sales prayer is the Sales Podcast mantra. Today is my day. I work diligently towards my goals, which are bigger than me. I bite off more than I can chew because only then will I truly know my current limits, and surpassing them becomes my new goal for today. Through education, accountability partners, and bold, decisive action, today will be better than yesterday, and tomorrow will be better yet. I'm ready to produce. And with that, I welcome Mr. Steve Clark of New School Selling. Steve Clark, New School Selling, welcome to the show. How are you?
I am great, Wes. Thanks for having me.
Hey, I will, for those that are reading the notes when I write this up, you are my sales training mentor. Would you mind taking, not everybody knows that yet, but they will after this call. Would you mind taking, though, a couple minutes to kind of tell everybody your background and how you got started and what you're doing now?
Sure. I have been in the sales training business since 1996 officially in my own business. Before that, I was a feet-on-the-street salesperson from 1980 to 1996. I sold everything from life insurance, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, pots and pans, laundry detergent. I was in Amway for a while, did very well in that. Sold pest control services, worked for Orkin. So you name it, I've probably sold it. Security systems and a whole bunch of other things. I can't even remember what I sold.
Sounds like me.
Yeah, that doesn't count the selling I did as a kid when I sold greeting cards and flower seeds out of Boy's Life magazine and that sort of stuff. But I didn't get into this game until late. I was 30 years old before I actually got in sales. And for 16 years, I struggled. Didn't make much money, never made more than about $53,000 a year. And then finally in 1996, I figured out how to do it better and put together a selling process. And my income went from $53,000 a year to over $350,000 a year in a 3-year period of time. And, I did that back in the late 90s. And since then, I've continued to do the sales training and primarily now working with small business owners, helping them recruit and hire and then train salespeople and then help them manage those salespeople and also helping them with some marketing that I've learned along the way.
Yeah, you had what, like a master's degree in like social, what was it? I'm drawing a blank now, but.
Well, it's actually, I've got a master's degree in education. And before I got into the whole sales business world, I worked in state government for 5 years in South Carolina for the health department.
Okay.
So after graduate school, from about 24, I guess, after graduate school to about 23 till about 28, I worked in state government. And then at age 28, I got married, and my wife and I took a 2-year honeymoon and lived in the Keys for 2 years.
Oh, nice!
And just didn't really have a full-time job down there. Just for 2 years, kind of hung out, did odd jobs just enough to get by and fish and dive and have fun. And finally at 30, I got serious and decided, hey, if we're going to have a family and all that sort of stuff, I need to get back in the real world and get a real job. And that's when I got in sales.
So you left that so you could get a real job, so you could make enough money to go back to the Keys and hang out. Is that right?
Yeah, now I can go down there. I do the same thing. I just do it in a little nicer style.
I did not know that about you.
Yeah.
That's cool. I was born in the Florida, Key West. My dad was, during Vietnam, he was stationed there. He was in the Army, but Navy had an electronics training school down there or something that they traded with or something. I don't know. He went to training there when I was born, and then he left for Korea.
Cool.
So, all right. So this story brings up the age-old question, are salespeople born or made? Because you having a master's in education and working in state government, some would say you were not a born salesman. How would you answer that?
Well, not only was I not a born salesman, I've never met one.
Okay.
Now, I will say that there are some people that have more of a predisposition to be successful in sales. Just like there's some people that have a predisposition to be NFL quarterbacks. Everybody can throw the football, but not everybody can throw it the way that Peyton Manning throws it. So there are differences in what I've come to realize after training thousands of salespeople and testing thousands of them and helping companies hire and watching what they do, is that about 20% of the people walking the face of the planet possess the innate skills, if you will, that would make them a top-notch salesperson. The other 80% of the people can be mediocre to some degree, but only about 20% of the people have those internal skills, things like resiliency. They're resistant to failure. They don't get discouraged easily. They are self-starters. They're driven by wanting to make money as a value in their life. They're good self-managers. They have great discipline. And those kinds of things, which really you can't train or teach those things in people. By the time someone becomes an adult, you either have those things or you don't, pretty much. And if you don't have those things, you're not going to make a great salesperson and probably not a great anything else either. So you can take somebody like that has those innate skills, if you will, and you can train them in how to sell. But you can't take someone who has a poor self-image, who has a fear of rejection, who is incapable of self-starting and managing themselves. You can't take someone like that and put them in sales training and expect that you're going to have a thoroughbred. You may have a mediocre producer, but you won't have a top-notch producer. So I tell people all the time, you hire based on these internal, what we call talents and skills. You hire to that, and then you train people how to sell. Even if they've never been in sales before, if they have those talents, they'll do better than somebody who's been around for a long time that doesn't have those skills.
Right. What drove you to sales? Because, I mean, you were living the good life, right? Never been in sales before. Now all of a sudden you're married and you jump into selling.
Yeah, well, the not making any money drove me to sales. That's I decided that, I'd worked in state government for 5 years, so I realized that was not going to get me anywhere.
Right.
I barely made a living. I saw what school teachers made. I knew I didn't want to be one of those. So I looked around and said, well, the only thing that I know of that you're going to get paid what you're worth, in other words, you're going to be able to determine your income based upon your performance, was sales. I've never been in professional sales before, but I realized that, hey, that is an opportunity where if you sell something and make a commission, you have control over whether or not you can sell and how hard you're going to work and so forth and so on. So I realized that sales was an opportunity for me to control my own destiny and make the kind of money I wanted to make. So I got into sales with that as an idea. that I was going to get paid what I was worth. And for the first 2 years, I did exactly that, which means that I did not get paid very much. And I damn near starved to death the first 2 years because I couldn't figure out what I was doing, didn't know what I was doing, because it was a whole brand new ball game for me. But I hung around, studied, really took it to heart to practice the craft and learn everything I could about it. And I don't know if I was hard-headed or stupid, but I hung around long enough to figure it out finally so that I could join the ranks of the high-income earners and, make a multiple six-figure income.
So you said, so for 2 years, but you said for 16 years, you were just kind of making it, right? From 80 to 96?
From 80 to 96, I was basically making a living, and it took me that long to figure out how really to crack the code. And really what the real issue was, Wes, it took me that long to work on my own stuff and to get my head screwed on right. It had nothing to do with quote unquote learning how to sell. It was all about getting my thought process straightened out in the right direction and working on myself so that I could be effective. So it was a lot of introspection, a lot of failure, a lot of taking a hard, long look at myself, looking in the mirror, and being honest with myself about the things that I was doing or the things I wasn't doing that were affecting my results. And it kind of took me a while to really make up my mind that, you know what, I really do want to do this and do it well. If I'm going to do it, I might as well do it well instead of doing it half-ass.
What do you think held you back? Was it your upbringing? I mean, did you come from like blue collar family and like, hey, I really can't make any more than this?
Well, yeah, my father was an Army sergeant. My mother was a waitress. Neither one of them finished high school. When I graduated from high school, we lived in a 12 by 70 foot trailer. And both of my grandparents worked in textile mills in South Carolina that wore bib overalls, and they would come home from work every day with lint in their hair from working in the cotton mills, and that was what my parents grew up with, and then that's kind of what I grew up with as a family heritage, if you will. And nobody in my family to this day has ever made $100,000 a year, and of the 23 cousins I have on my mother's side of the family, I'm the only one. Well, there's one other now who, as an adult, has gotten a college degree. But of those 23, I was the only one when I got a college degree to ever get a college degree, much less get a master's degree. So I had an awful lot of self-image stuff to deal with. And every time that I got somewhat successful, I would figure out a way to screw it up because my unconscious mind did not feel like I deserved anything more than what I had experienced growing up. So that took a lot of therapy, basically, a lot of working on me to finally figure it out to get to the point where I felt like I was deserving. And I see that a lot in people. I think, everybody is making what they think they're worth.
Yep.
They're not making what they're capable of making or what they want to make or what their potential is. But every one of us has an internal thermostat, if you will, that's set with what we think we're worth. And then we go about on our daily behavior doing things that reinforce that image we have of ourselves and what we think we're worth.
Right.
And that's a hard thing for people to work on. Most folks, A, don't know that. B, if they know it, they don't want to work on it because it is a lot of work. So if you grow up in a family where there's a lot of money, for instance, say the Kennedy family, I don't think they have problems with making lots of money.
Right.
I don't think that's an issue with them. They expect to make a lot of money. But when you grow up with nothing, you got a long way to go to get to the point where you feel like you deserve to make a lot of money.
Right. I know in one of your CDs you talk about when you were in life insurance, you landed some big account and you made more money on that one deal than you'd made all year. And then you just kind of went on cruise control to make sure you basically didn't make any more. Right.
Yeah, I was way out of my comfort zone on the high end.
Right.
So I unconsciously sabotaged my efforts for the rest of the year to make sure that I didn't, have a phenomenal year. And I ended up having the best year I'd ever had, but only by a little bit. But I made that large sale in March, and then for the next 9 months, I went to work every day, but I didn't accomplish very much because my unconscious mind was trying to reinforce the fact that, hey, you don't deserve this. Don't get above your raisin. Who do you think you are? That right. Type thing.
So do you think people are more afraid of success than failure?
I think they're just as afraid of success as failure. I think they're both pretty equally powerful for folks. Because when you do become successful, whether people consciously recognize it or articulate it or not, when you do become successful, your whole circle of friends changes. And the things you used to do, you no longer do. And you really do have to reinvent yourself in your whole life. And, when you're making multiple six-figure incomes, you're no longer hanging around people making $40,000 a year.
Right.
If you're making $350, the people who are making $50 don't want to hear about it.
Right.
And when you're around them and they know you're making that kind of money, they're very uncomfortable, and they will do lots of things to make you somehow feel guilty or what have you. By taking shots at you and saying things like somebody said to me at church one day. I drove up in my Mercedes and my wife drove up in a BMW. And this guy said to us, we'd known him for a long time. He knew us when we weren't making any money. And he said to me, I'm glad you're doing well, but don't forget to smell the roses. Type deal. And right. I'm like, what the hell's that supposed to mean? Right. So he was extremely uncomfortable. So I realized at that point that our friendship was not going to go any further. We were basically done because he could not handle my success.
Right.
And I could not handle his poverty.
Nice. So what is your advice? How do you help your clients overcome that self-sabotage?
Well, the first thing, there are really two levels. One is the intellectual level of recognizing what's going on. And then the second one is once somebody does recognize intellectually that is what is going on and understand that, then they really go to work on themselves by changing their behaviors, changing who they hang around, changing what they read, what they listen to, changing their own language in their conversation, and they start doing those kinds of behaviors that people who are successful do. And people who are successful do behaviors that are quite different than people who are not financially successful. People who are very financially successful are always looking at the glass half full and what are the opportunities. They have all kinds of problems in their life. They have things happen to them. They have kids that wreck the car, and they have kids that get arrested for a DUI and so forth and so on, just like everybody else in life. But the really successful people deal with those things and move on and are always looking at the possibilities of what can take place. It's a mindset kind of issue. And the people who don't, who aren't financially successful, are always of the mindset, woe is me. They're always looking at the glass half empty. They're always waiting for the other shoe to fall. They're waiting for, the earth to start to fall apart. They're constantly caught up in negative talk and reading trashy negative stuff and watching mindless television where people are conditioned to think like that and to think negatively. And the people who are successful, that's not the sort of stuff they do. So somebody told me a long time ago, they said, Steve, if you want to be successful, then start hanging around millionaires even if it means you have to shine their shoes. And I didn't quite get it at the time, but I get it now, which is hang around those people and you will begin to adopt some of their thought processes. And the thought processes lead to behavioral changes, and behavioral changes drive all results. And then the results reinforce the behaviors and thought processes. So people say, where do you start? Well, you start by doing something differently. You know, you behave differently is where it all starts.
Yeah, I heard a guy say, you know, even if that means brushing your teeth with your left hand.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I mean, do something different to tell yourself it's now different. Things are now different. It's time to make that change.
Absolutely. It does come back to behavior. I'm a great believer in reading books, listening to CDs, and going to hear motivational speakers. I do believe in those things. But I will tell you that you can listen to as many CDs as you want and read as many books as you want and hear as many motivational speakers you want. But until you get off your ass and do something differently than you're doing right now, you won't make any more money, period. It doesn't matter how much you know or whatever. It's all about behavior.
Yeah, it's like that old joke that 3 frogs sitting on a lily pad and 2 decide to jump off. How many are left? And they go, well, 3, because they all just decided. None actually jumped.
You're exactly right. That's a great point.
Got to jump.
Yep, you got to jump, and it, which leads me to the thing that you talked about earlier, which is when I decided to get into this business, I was 45 years old, almost 46 years old. And I took a second mortgage on my home of $30,000 because that's all they would give me. And I liquidated what little bit of 401k money I had, which was not very much, just, $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 as I recall. And on top of that, I had to go to my mother at age 46, almost 46, and ask her for a $10,000 loan. Now, I did all of that to open up this business in September of 1996 with the idea that I was sick and tired of being broke, and I was going to go to the next level. And the day I opened my business, I had $5,000 in the bank. I had 0 clients. I had 0 income. I had 2 pre-teenage daughters, wife, 2 dogs, and a couple cats, mortgage payment. And the option of failure was completely taken away from me. And I decided that when I did that there was nothing I would do or there was nothing I wouldn't do, long as it was legal, moral, and honest, that would prevent me from being a success. So people ask me all the time, what's the one thing that would drive you or drive someone who is not real successful financially to want to become financially successful? And my response to that always is it always helps to get real pissed off. Mm-hmm. Because until you get really pissed off at your existing situation and you get, to use a Southern term, until you get sick and tired of being sick and tired of where you are, you won't do anything differently.
Yep.
So that's kind of what happened in my particular situation. Now, what's interesting about that is I've gotten very comfortable at my income level. It's the same process, just at a higher level. So now I'm comfortable at this income level, and if I want to go to the next income level, if I want to grow my income beyond where it is now significantly, I've got to get pissed off about only making $400,000 or $500,000 a year.
Right.
And people say, well, how can you get, well, you know what? It's amazing how comfortable you can get at that income level. But it's also amazing when you look around, you say, if I had another $500,000 a year, there are a whole bunch of things I could do that I'm not doing right now. Yeah.
It's true. My business has grown, and still, if I don't see growth, I'm upset. And I think that's just what drives all of us, is just that. I think you always said, money is just how you keep score. Once you reach a certain level, You know, I mean, the bills are paid, right? There's food on the table. But it is nice. You know, it gives you, I was just watching Kevin O'Leary. He was on CNN. And, you know, he says it's freedom. I mean, money is freedom. Freedom to answer the phone or not answer the phone. You know, and to have that kind of control, because I still like doing what I do, but, you know, I don't have to chase the phone. I don't have to chase people, but, you know, I still want to keep growing. But how? Yeah, I mean, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I realize now that I'm not one that would be very satisfied to have an abundance of free time. I love to fish and I love to hike and I love to do a bunch of other things. But at some point, if I didn't do what I was doing right now, I would get bored with doing all of those things. And I would want something to do that gives me meaning beyond recreation and fun.
Right.
Now, I would do what I'm doing perhaps a little bit less than I'm doing now. I would travel a little bit more and do a few other kinds of things. But that's about the only change I can see in my life at this point that I would make if I had, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars. I can't see doing a whole lot different than I'm doing right now. Because I'm pretty much doing what I want to do.
Yep. You know, I want to kind of go back to a point you brought up because, you know, you had taught me this years ago. You're talking about, you know, actions create the feelings rather than the other way around. Like people always say, well, when I feel better or when, you know, things are in line, then I'll go do this or that. But it's like, no. Like, you know, back then it was making cold calls, right? Make the call, pick up the phone, do the action. And survive, right? Even if they hang up on you, you're still alive. Even if they cuss you out, you're still alive. Some will actually buy from you, and you're really alive. But just completing the task, completing the goal brings about that feeling of accomplishment and achievement, and then that builds on itself. You know, so can you elaborate on that after, you know, it's been years since we've really been working together, but any more insight on that?
Well, I mean, you just nailed it. That's exactly right. My father used to say it a little bit more succinctly. When I would be sitting around moping around as a teenager, he would say, "For God's sake, son, get off your ass and do something, even if it's wrong." Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
The idea being momentum creates energy. And if you're doing something and it doesn't work, at least if you're moving, you will be able to figure out what you're doing wrong. And by trial and error, you'll eventually figure it out if you keep moving in the right direction. Now, another reference to that is it's very difficult to steer a parked car. So, same sort of concept. Yep. So action and momentum does create energy, and energy has an amazing way of drawing positive results into your life because the world is really all about energy. Mm-hmm. Not to get too metaphysical, but there is a whole energy aura out there, and money and success and things are attracted to people who are high energy level. Right. They're not attracted to people who sit around and wait for things to come to them. So you're absolutely right about that. And mentally, the great Harvard psychologist William James, who's considered the father of modern psychology, said exactly what you said. It said that you cannot think your way into a new way of acting, but you can act yourself into a new way of thinking. So you're absolutely right. The behavior or the physiology comes before the attitude. Mm-hmm. And that's why I say that it's all about behavior. If what you're doing is not working, then do something differently and do a lot of it. I refer to that as massive immediate activity. And if a person will do massive immediate activity, then just by trial and error or just by luck, they're going to do enough stuff that's going to make them successful over time.
Right. That's what's so hard for people to come to grips with, right? Because I'm sure you get these calls like, Steve, what's the one thing I can do? Give me that. What do I have to do right now to make this? And it's like, I think it was Dan Kennedy that said, I can't give you one way to get 30 leads, but I can give you 30 ways to get one lead.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I tell people all the time, if you, as a salesperson, or I tell business owners this all the time, if you really want to have a dynamic lead generation program and have people coming to you and seeking you out, you need to be doing 6 to 10 marketing activities consistently every month. Mm-hmm. And if you will do those consistently, then you are doing enough activity to keep the pipeline full of leads for you that will produce the kind of results you want. Now, not everything you try is going to work. In fact, most of the things you try are not going to work. So what? Most of the time the baseball player goes up to the plate, what they do is not going to work. Mm-hmm. So, if you fail 2 out of 3 times, hey, that's fine. 1 out of 3 is still a pretty good number if you will consistently do that over time. And if you're smart and track what you're doing and keep up with what you're doing, you'll eliminate those behaviors that don't work and replace them with new behaviors that do work, so that over time you're doing lots of things that do work. And you're absolutely right. There is no one single key to be successful, period, in anything.
Well, you've been at this longer than me. You've seen a few business cycles come and go. Is there anything new? I mean, is there something coming around the bend? It's something people should be on the lookout for? Or is it just the same blocking and tackling fundamentals? Obviously social media's all the rage right now. I get a decent amount of traffic from it, and I've made money from it, but it's still, I don't know, I'm not a millionaire because of social media. Are there things out there that like your clients are underutilizing consistently that people should maybe pay attention to?
Well, there is nothing new. People are looking for the silver bullet. I'm sorry, there isn't one. And going off chasing some shiny new object as if it's the answer is a fool's goal pursuit for sure. You talk about social media. Social media does have its place, but it shouldn't be at the top of your list of things you're doing to try and generate business. So you go back to the basic foundation of what it takes to generate business, and that is you've got to be out there in the marketplace. You've got to be somewhere, and if you're doing it right, every time people turn around, they see you in the marketplace, either electronically or in print or in person. And over time, when you do enough of that sort of stuff, that people see you over and over again, then it will produce some positive results for you. So how do you go about doing that? Well, one of the things I suggest that people do is I suggest that they write. There's nothing more powerful to position you as a person of influence in whatever you do than writing a book. Mm-hmm. When I wrote my book, it immediately positioned me as cut above everybody else that I was trying to compete in or with. And I'll give you one example of how that played out for me. I spoke at a Chamber of Commerce, and you know where I live, so I spoke at the Destin Chamber of Commerce. Mm-hmm. And there were about 200 people in the room, and one of the guys in the room, sitting close up front, was a president of a company. And the result of me speaking was I ended up getting what amounted to a $40,000 consulting contract with that company, simply because I spoke and I had my book on display, and I had my book for sale at that event, and he got one of my books and he read my book, and as a result of that, he contacted me to come see him and talk with him about helping him hire, recruit, and train salespeople. And I would have never gotten that gig had I not written a book. So if I never get anything else in my life for writing that book, that $140,000 contract was worth me writing a book. Now, I've gotten a lot more business since then, and I can't tell you the intangible effect that it's had with people maybe doing business with me that were on the fence that I've gotten and that I probably would not have gotten had I not read the book. So that's one thing. But writing a book certainly is something people can do. They can write for local newspapers. They can write in trade journals. They can do an internet blog. They can write a newsletter. Anything that you do to write positions you as a person of influence. Another thing people can do is to go out and speak. Every town of any size in America has Rotary clubs, Optimist clubs, Sertoma clubs, business women's groups, men's groups, Christian groups, whatever. And the smart business person will do everything they can to put together a dynamic 20-minute talk that will get them invited to these meetings to speak and position themselves, again, as a person of influence. So those are things folks can do. And those things sure as heck beat the devil out of cold calling, picking up the phone or banging on doors and trying to force your way in and being a pest to people who don't want to see you. Another thing that folks can do along those lines is get involved in their local community. Get involved in organizations. Now, you have to be careful about how you parcel out your time, but get very much involved in the community that you're serving and working in, and see and be seen at as many events that you can possibly do without wasting your time. And again, you got to be careful about which organizations to be in. But those kinds of things, all of those, the net effect of those is getting people to know you and to like you and trust you. And in today's economy, the one thing that certainly I think is more important now than ever before is that today's consumer, today's buyer, today's prospect is the most distrusting, jaundiced potential customer or buyer that the world has ever seen. No one trusts anybody about anything. Our business leaders have let us down. Our religious leaders have let us down. Our politicians have let us down, and on and on and on. And people do not trust anything that you or I have to say at face value the first time they hear it or talk to us. And all of those kinds of things that I just mentioned, the net effect of those things, now granted, those things take time to play out. There's no instant do it today and get business tomorrow type deal. But all of those things taken in the totality, as we said a minute ago, doing a whole bunch of things will position you in the marketplace as a person of authority and a person that can be trusted. And when you do that, then people then naturally gravitate towards you when they need what it is you do.
Right. What do you tell? Oh, go ahead.
People don't want to hear that. They want the instant gratification. We live in the thing. Can you give me 3 secrets right now that I can go out and make $1 million next week? No. If I could do that, I wouldn't be sitting here. And
I need to be able to implement it one-handed while I text it on my phone as I drive to my next meeting.
Right. And besides that, can you tell me something I have to do that I can do those things, but not if I have to quit watching American Idol.
Right.
Yeah.
But, Steve, I don't have time. I'm not a writer. I don't have those contacts. I don't have the money to write a book. I'm not a good speaker. I'm not good with a computer. I've never made a PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, well, neither did anybody else before they ever did it the first time. Yeah.
Suck it up. Google it or YouTube it, and there'll be a video there to show you how to do it, huh?
That's right. And my response to any of that is, so you'd rather make excuses than make money, huh? One or the other, you pick. So you don't whine and complain. If you don't want to do anything.
So for everybody wondering, so I took a 12-week virtual sales training class from Steve, and then started working with him one-on-one, like in 2006. He had me buy a device, a recording that would record the phone conversation and dump it in the computer. And then he would grill me on how bad I was on the phone. And you know what? He didn't have to grill me very much till I got good on the phone. So
yeah, you got very good. Now you're doing extremely well.
So this is not do as I say, not as I do. Do as Steve did and does, and as he made me do and continue to do.
Yeah. Well, you're a great success, but you came to the table ready and willing to do what was necessary. So it was you get all the credit. All I did was open some doors, and you chose to walk through. And I've made that same offer to countless hundreds since I first met you, and many say they want to do it, but when it's all said and done, only a few actually do it.
Right. Couple last questions. One is, what is on your bookshelf? Like either you reference all the time or you're reading now?
The one thing that I have been doing a lot of reading on is the whole 80-20 concept. Richard Koch's book and Perry Marshall's book, and really looking at this whole idea. And, like a lot of things, the first time you go through something, you think you understand it, but when you come back to it, like Richard Koch's book I read 10 years ago, the 80-20 rule,
right?
When you come back to it and reread it, you find other deeper levels of understanding because you have changed and you have grown, and you can understand things that you could not previously understand. So I've been steeped into that here for the last few months, and really coming to understand that the 80-20 rule is really calculus that plays out in a physical form in the world, and that there's nothing that can be done to change that equation that says basically 20% of the people are going to control 80% of the wealth in the world. 20% of your customers are going to produce 80% of your sales. 20% of your salespeople are going to sell 80% of what you have. Now, with minor variations, that those numbers play out. And then coming to understand that and really letting folks know that, hey, it is a choice. You can either by choice become a 20%er, or you will by default become an 80%er. There is no other way. There are only two choices.
I hear you. That is a good book. I haven't read Richard Koch's, but I've read Perry's. I'm going to go get that one next.
Yeah, you can go, and he's got another one out, one on management now, the 80-20 rule on management. He even says in there that wealth is created by doing deals and investing rather than working. And he said you will find most of the people who have made a lot of money have made the money not through income from their work, but they've taken that income and leveraged that income into investments and so forth that have made them wealthy. Or in his case, when he worked with Bain Capital, when he did a consulting gig, he would take a percentage of the deal that he was working on. So he actually got a piece of the business as he did the consulting with them, which is a very, very smart strategy.
Right. Well, where can people find you, learn more about you and what you offer?
Well, they can find me at New School, SCHOOL, New School Selling. And if they would like to go there, we have an offer for them of 6 free sales training CDs that they can get. It's some of my best stuff. And they can also, at that website at New School Selling, they can take a sales skills assessment, and they will get an immediate customized report back once they take that assessment, that quiz, and it will give them an analysis of their selling skills and tell them exactly what they need to do in order to become more successful. So both of those things are free at New School Selling. CDs are free. We do ask folks if they would cover the shipping charge, but the CDs are free.
All right. And I would encourage everyone to do it. Those are CDs I paid hundreds of dollars for 8 years ago. Go get them. And the sales skills assessment is eye-opening. So it's good for you to understand yourself, and it's key to understanding your people. So even if you have people working for you, have them take these tests so you can understand how best to communicate. I mean, again, I've learned this over the years. Steve helped me learn it. There's different personalities that are fit for different types of sales roles. Hunting versus maintenance versus tech support. Long sales cycle, short sales cycle, tangible products, intangible products. So, just because you've got somebody and they're doing okay doesn't mean they're in the best position there. So I encourage everybody to take a look at newschoolselling.com, sign up for all that, and because that's what I did. So you want to be like Wes? Do that. How's that?
That's good. I echo that 100%.
Well, thanks for taking this time, Steve. We had to reschedule once or twice, but it was worth the wait.
Well, great. I appreciate you having me, and hope this is helpful for folks.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good stuff there, isn't it? Yeah. Pay attention to what Steve had mentioned about there are no born salespeople. And like he said, he's never met one. You may have a predisposition for sales, but it doesn't mean you know how to be a professional salesperson. And the biggest thing you've got to get over is your fear of money, your fear of success. You need to be comfortable around successful people, and you need to see yourself as worthy of success to hit your goals. Until you do, everything you try to do will be inefficient, ineffective, and really just going to be spinning your heels, hopping from one shiny object, one new technique, new strategy, new gizmo, new gimmick to the next. Get comfortable with money, see yourself as worthy, and your income, your sales success, your business success, your sense of fulfillment will change for the better. If you need some help along those lines, I have 2 resources for you. My new book, you can still get a free sample at 79stories.info. And then also, as I mentioned at the beginning of the program, my 30-day sales growth program, it's 30daysalesgrowth.com. Enter the promo code podcast and get 30% off of that. As always, thank you for listening. Please give us a 5-star rating over at iTunes and leave some comments here at thesaleswhisperer.com/session45. And as always, remember to sell different.